Started by a local IU law professor in 1972 who found a passion in home winemaking, Oliver Winery has become one of the gems of Bloomington. With 35 acres and 14 varieties of grapes, this vineyard and its winery remains busy from the moment the grapes start growing.
The shoots start growing in April. Normally, depending on the variety, they start ripening up and for harvest in late August through October. Usually harvested in about 4 hours, depending on the amount of grapes that we have out there. We start transporting them over almost immediately. As soon as we have a truckload, they get transferred over to Oliver Winery.
It is here at Oliver Winery where the grapes will go through each intricate process in order to be made into wine. From crushing to fermentation, each wine is made with the greatest of care from the moment they arrive. Depending on whether the grapes are to be made into red or white wine, however, this process varies slightly.
A lot of our wines, especially white wines, are done in stainless steel tanks. We like to make wines that preserve a lot of fruit character, really fresh, vibrant, wines that just really taste like grapes just picked right off the vine. Stainless steel is great because, one, we can make it really clean. Cleanliness is essential when you're going to make wines that really express fruit character. You don't want flaws to interfere with that. Fermentation control through refrigeration is also really essential. We like to ferment white wines really cold so that we retain a lot of those volatile fruit compounds. We also do, with a lot of white wines, we do arrested fermentation, which is a process where we're going to stop the fermentation at a certain point to save part of that natural grape sugar. We don't want to ferment all the way to dryness. We want to stop at 2% residual sugar, maybe like for Riesling and reverse fermenter, to have that really nice balance between acidity and sweetness. And we use that. We use a centrifuge for that process. And a centrifuge is a machine that you can run wine through, and it accelerates it with really high G forces through just a period as it flows through this machine, and it removes the yeast that way, essentially stopping fermentation. Great tool for us, and it makes wines that are just really clean and fresh. Wonderful wines.
These wines cannot go straight to the bottle, however. They first must be aged.
Red wines are aged in small oak barrels, 225-gallon oak barrels, or this year we're going to experiment with using some larger oak tanks that you see behind me right here. These are about 1,600 gallons. But when we talk about white wines, we talk about the absolute need to protect those wines from oxygen. That's why we use stainless steel tanks for white wines. But in the case of red wines, they have a big tannin structure, and tannin is also what we get from the skins in addition to color. Tannins are a really important part of red wine, but they're really astringent in young red wines. And we find that the small amount of oxygen that can penetrate the staves on an oak tank help polymerize those tannins, help soften those tannins. And it's really, really important part of winemaking. Without putting red wines in barrels for some period of time, you end up with these really astringent, almost bitter wines. So it's a really important part of red wine aging.
After the wines are aged, they will go through the bottling process. One of the more straightforward mechanical processes of winemaking, bottling is done by an automatic bottler. Running at 100 bottles a minute and 3,500 to 4,000 cases a day, Oliver Winery has been able to produce and output vast amounts of wine. Some of these wines will be distributed outside of Indiana to places such as Illinois, Ohio, and Kentucky. Some of these wines, however, will stay here at Oliver Winery and available in the tasting room for guests to come in and try all year round and enjoy the Oliver Winery experience.
Basically, a customer would come into the tasting room and they'd come up to the bar, and we would ask them a series of questions to determine what their preferences were or what kind of wines they enjoyed. For instance, they might be new to wine, or they might have enjoyed wine their entire lives. So we want to find out what kind of wines they already know they enjoy, or what wines they think they might enjoy. So we can move them up and down the list depending on what wines we find out that they like. For instance, they might enjoy drier wines, so we'll work them through the top of our list, or they might enjoy sweeter wines, so we'll move them towards the bottom. We have over 35 wines, so we can typically find something for everybody. And we recommend that most customers, when they come in, taste between 6 and 8 wines. That way they can taste a full variety of wines that we have, but also leave happy and come back and see us again.
And they do. The experience at Oliver Winery is one that keeps guests returning regularly, keeping this local Bloomington winery a favorite stop for many years to come.